Hey Jennifer, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay. I saw like some kind of other YouTube video of two people and they're like, this is what we do these days. We ask the question, how are you? And we're all like,
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
I was all prepared to give my standard, I'm
yeah,
fine, how are you? And
yeah,
you know what? I'm
yeah,
not fine.
yeah, I know, especially after this past week. And it's interesting to me reflecting on our last episode, which was like chill out, like we can't kind of lurch from outrage to outrage. Um, in this work. We have to preserve our energy. And today I'm just outraged again. I find myself, I can't follow my own advice.
I super
Yeah.
stand by everything we said in that last episode, but I also feel like karma's kicking me in the
Yeah,
ass.
I know it. Trying though, trying to use
Yes.
my, take my own advice and use my own tools. I'm outraged about a lot of things. And one of them this week is the pardon of our own sort of native person here in Midland, Jeremy Rodgers, for his um, felonies that he committed on January 6th, but
Mhm.
also the ways in which he's like talking about that time out in the public spaces as if it's no big
Mhm.
deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like from chill out to like outraged on a global level, on a national level, and for sure here on a local level when it comes to that guy. Yeah, how are you feeling about all that?
Well, kind of like Tim Miller said, um, I'm gonna be outraged about the things I want to be outraged about. And
And
he's
get
another
be
one that's like,
selective, yeah.
yes, we're not going to bounce from thing to thing and be outraged about everything because it's not productive. But then he's like, I'm going to be outraged about the things I'm outraged about. So here's one of the ones that we're outraged about.
Yeah, yeah, understandably, right? Give myself some grace for this one for sure. I know you've been doing some research, kind of just harkening back and remembering the whole
Mhm.
storyline with Mr. Rogers there. What's top of mind for you about that whole thing?
Well, I kind of just want to like, I know most of the people that are going to watch this probably know who we're talking about.
Yeah,
But for anybody who doesn't, here's kind of a recap. Jeremy Rodgers is a person who lives in Midland, Michigan. He has been a huge part of the Midland County Republican Party for years. He's a pretty young guy. I
yeah.
think he's in his 20s, early 30s. I don't remember exactly. I don't particularly care. He looks like a baby. I'll give him that. He looks like he's about, 22
Yeah.
maybe. But he's married. I think he's got two kids. I can't remember. And he's known locally as the guy that rides the unicycle in the local parades for
For
the
the
Midland
Republican
County
Party. Yeah.
for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Even though they tried to be all like, "Oh, Jeremy Rogers, who? We don't know him."
Right,
It's
right.
like, yeah, okay, so here's a picture of him with Bill Schuette, and here's a picture of him with John Moulinar, and here's a picture of him with Jim Thomas,
Yeah.
and here's a picture of him in the parade this year and this year and this year. So yeah, their whole like trying to pretend like they don't know him is crap.
Is outrageous. I would just like to stop there. Like he was literally on payroll, I think, for the county party slash. I'm not sure with some of the candidates for Gary Glenn. Like I'm not sure exactly what he was on payroll for, but I mean it's been several campaign cycles,
Yep.
several different campaigns that he was involved in, and he was a candidate for city council. Now that's nonpartisan is
Uh-huh.
in name at least, but
But he was backed
definitely
by Republicans.
backed by
Yeah.
Republicans, and lost both times.
Yes.
But
2 Town Hall.
yeah, exactly. So the idea that January 6th happened, this guy gets charged for some felonies, which I'm sure you're going to get into, but
Hmm.
then the local Republicans are like, I don't know who this guy is. Oh, and also, by the way, he's a current precinct delegate of the Republican
Elected.
Party, elected currently. So anyhow, okay, sorry. That was a bird walk, but let's get back to
And
the
okay, so
issues.
back to, but I gotta do one little
Yeah.
more thing on the bird walk. In his precinct, he got the most votes for precinct delegate. There were more than just him ran for precinct delegate in his
Uh-huh.
precinct, and he
Uh-huh.
got the most votes out of everybody, even as a January 6th insurrectionist. So
Yeah, I
just
don't know
throwing
if he
that
was
out there.
convicted by then or not, but he was definitely
He was
charged.
he was charged by then. He was not convicted because that was,
Yeah,
I want to say, May, and he didn't get convicted until December of this year.
gotcha, gotcha. And
Yeah.
remind us what he got convicted of.
Okay, so I'm gonna read the. Do you want to know all the charges or just the ones he was convicted of?
Oh, whatever you think.
Let's do all of them. So
Okay.
there's not that many. Okay, so count one, civil disorder. Count two, assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers using a dangerous weapon resulting in bodily injury. Count three, entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon. Count four, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon. Count five, engaging in physical violence in a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon. Count six, disorderly conduct in a Capitol building. Count seven, act of physical violence in the Capitol grounds or buildings. Count eight, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building. Now, he was only found guilty of counts 3, 4, and 5,
Which were?
which
Remind us.
were entering and remaining in a restricted building on grounds with deadly weapon, disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds with deadly and dangerous weapon, engaging in physical violence in a restricted building or grounds with deadly or dangerous weapon. So technically, he was not convicted of assaulting an officer, which I think is crap because it was literally on video.
It was literally on video. And like he's convicted of what? Using a deadly and dangerous weapon. I mean, the subtext there is on officers. Like
Yeah,
there's literally video of this guy. And the deadly, like the irony of the deadly and dangerous weapon being a freaking flagpole, an American
yeah,
flagpole is what he was using to, like, to commit these acts on January 6th. It's
yep.
just, it's just, it's outrageous. It's just outrageous. And it's outrageous that this guy has been walking around in Midland, is currently walking around in Midland, that he's been in all the political spaces, that he ran for office, that the rumor is he would consider running for office again. And
Oh yeah,
here we
people
are.
overheard him. Like we've got friends all over the place and friends of friends, you know what I mean? And like, and
Yeah.
we saw like at one of our chat groups, somebody sent a friend of ours, they're like, Jeremy Rodgers is in this coffee shop and here's what he's saying. And like he was literally saying that he was thinking of running for the Michigan State House seat. And sorry about sorry about my voice. I'm coming down with something my little germ factories have brought home.
Yeah. I mean, which is like adds to the outrage. I can't even imagine, right? This guy running for state house.
Oh God.
Like his moniker, like what the FBI called him, right? When they were looking for him, when he was a person of interest that they were looking for, is the freshman flagger,
Yeah.
right? The freshman flagger, right? Because he looks so young, because he is. And he was using a flagpole to assault police officers. So the
Yeah.
freshman flagger might be back in the political sphere. He might be back on our ballots someday. It's outrageous. It's
And
outrageous.
it's just frustrating too because we look at all of the data and the political makeup of our area and adjoining areas and whatnot, and the chance that if he got out of a primary,
Yeah,
of him
he would win.
actually winning that district
Yeah,
is disturbingly big.
yeah, yeah.
It is a very Republican district. I do think that he would not win as big as Bill G. Schuette, obviously, just for all of the reasons we're discussing right now. But the gap between what a Democrat can do in this district and what a Republican can do in this district is pretty big. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a real possibility, and it stinks.
Uh-huh. Yeah, if he decided to run and the Republicans in town lost their minds again and decided that, oh, we actually know who Jeremy Rodgers is and we love him, and orchestrated a scenario where there wasn't any or a very strong primary candidate, which is for sure possible,
Mm-hmm.
which we have seen before in this area, uh, the chances of him like representing us, the chances of the freshman flagger representing me and you and our families in Lansing could be really high in that
Yeah.
scenario. It's
Yeah.
like, it's outrageous. It's outrageous to even think about.
And I think like the part of what really ticks me off about it um is his attitude. Like, so for anybody that doesn't know, he gave a interview on, sorry, I'm gonna look it up because I've got like I wrote a letter to the editor. It's going to the editor today. Don't know if they'll print it. I was kind of mad. um Keeping It Real with Dave Bondi, some podcast. No idea who it is, or I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But he just kind of did this whole like, I was just there to peacefully protest, and I told people, not to be violent. And when I used that flagpole, it was just to like try to stop people. Like, don't do that. It's like, okay, gaslighting 101, friends.
Oh my gosh, we can see it with our own eyes. The
Yeah,
video.
and
Oh my
he's
God.
like, well, when you go to the Lansing State Capitol, you can just walk in and go see anybody you want, and there's no problem. And I thought that I could do that. Are you for real?
With
Because
my flagpole.
with my flagpole and my other violent rioters.
Yes.
But like, and
Oh my
I've
God.
been to the state capitol, I've visited representatives, but even like having done it, I was like, okay, I called a friend of mine that worked. He doesn't work in the state capitol anymore. But I called a friend of mine and I'm like, okay, how does this work? Just refresh my memory so that I'm not, misunderstanding. And he's like, well, yeah, technically you can go
Yeah.
just walk up to the office of any of your representatives, knock on the door. You might not get in because if you don't have an appointment and they're not there, or whatever. Like but you can go there. But you have to go through security. You have to show your driver's license. You have to get a visitor's badge. You don't break down the doors, carry your flagpole in there, move barriers. Like, he moved barriers.
Yeah, right. And then he's like, how was I to know that I'm not supposed to do that? Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. Everyone's being so mean to me when they're like
Yes.
convicting me of these things. I mean,
Oh.
I can remember going, so Jeremy Rodgers worked for these elected officials. So he,
Yeah.
of all people, should know how to get into the state capitol.
He worked for Jim Thomas in the
Yeah.
state capitol.
Exactly, in the state capitol. So like he went to work there. He knows what it takes to go through security there. And I can remember going to the state capitol. It was around kind of 2017, 2018. We were doing some like demonstrations around gun safety or something. And we walked in and a friend of mine had a rolled up poster board. Um, Rolled up poster, not board, just a poster, and it was just a poster that said like "Moms Demand Action" or something like that, and it was confiscated because they wouldn't let it. Could be like a weapon or something, like literally a poster board. So there's no way on earth that anybody should believe that removing barriers and waltzing through the National Capitol building with a flagpole is totally cool and fine, and you had no idea that that was not okay.
Yeah.
It's just it's just outrageous. It's just outrageous.
It's just the whole, I mean, it's so hard to be a college educated privileged white man with powerful friends in this environment. I mean, I just can't imagine what Jeremy Rodgers went through every day. That
the poor guy. The poor guy. I mean, and like, as his supporters say, like he's really been through enough, right?
Aww.
Like he's definitely like the stress of everything, and because after all, it was just sort of a mistake that he beat on police officers with a flagpole. Like anyone, that mistake could happen to anyone. And it's just people are so mean, and the federal government is out to get him, and all of the things. And thank goodness, the man who currently calls himself president, felt his way to pardon this and other violent offenders from January 6th.
Yeah. And the whole, oh, they blew it out of proportion and it wasn't really what it was. It was what it was. We saw it. It doesn't matter if some people walked in peacefully and some
Yeah.
didn't or whatever. We saw it. I remember sitting there that day and just being like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. It was
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. It was a moment of national trauma, and it should
Mhm.
be, right?
Yeah.
All of these things that we hear about that happened in our country's past or other countries in their past. This is a moment that is going to be heard about
Mhm.
regarding our country and our history 50 years from now, 100 years from now, right? It's a moment of national trauma, and this guy was part of it. And no amount of gaslighting or sleight of hand or poo pooing or victim, playing the victim is going to change that. It's going to change that. We know, even the people who say they don't know, they know like what
Right.
actually went down that day.
And another thing that really, and he did a little bit of this, because in his interview, he's like, it's not like we were Antifa or Black Lives Matter protesters. Let me tell you some things. So on the day that there was a Black Lives Matter protest in DC, and then the day that there was, comparing the day that there was a Black Lives Matter protest in DC and then the day of the Capitol protests, 5 times more protesters were arrested at the
Mm,
Black Lives Matter protest
mm.
than when they stormed the Capitol.
Broke the windows, beat the, security guards
Yes,
and police officers.
yes. And I'm not saying that there wasn't violence or vandalism at these Black Lives Matter protests. I'm not saying that, and I do not approve that. We had one in Midland, and it was perfectly peaceful. Not a bad thing happened at all. So like you can do it, and I do not agree with violent protest. But yeah, like we saw the Black Lives Matter protests on TV too. There was violence, not anywhere close to what was happening at the Capitol
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah.
And 5 times more people were arrested. Of 49, they did like a study of 49 cities that had protests in 2020 related to George Floyd. So it was all the major cities. 14,000 people were arrested in connection with those Black Lives Matter protests, George
Mm-hmm.
Floyd protests. 14,000.
Mm-hmm.
And compare that to the 1,500 people that Trump pardoned. It's like it's apples to oranges. Like it's just totally different. And then the AP reviewed 300 federal cases against BLM George Floyd protesters and found that the punishments were as harsh or harsher than what the Capitol rioters received.
Yeah.
So this whole like, oh, they let all the Black Lives Matter people off. No, more were arrested, more were charged, more were convicted, and they got as harsher punishment.
Yeah. But the hypocrisy doesn't matter anymore. Like dissonance in facts, like we've lost our grip on the truth in this country. And so like laying alongside what you just shared, alongside what Jeremy Rodgers and other people are saying, and what we're asking is for you to like, come to the conclusion that is different than the one that you're holding because the facts bear that out. But we're not in that place anymore. If we
Your
ever
eyes
were
don't matter. It doesn't matter
in
what you
this
saw.
country, it doesn't matter. The cognitive dissonance of like rational thought versus what's going on in these other spaces on the far right and the moderate right, frankly, as far as like just conceding to the far right is outrageous. I say all the time, like, I don't know how folks who hold these two like opposing views and know like hold a view and see the truth, how do they sleep at night? Like I would have such a hard time, like not only in this issue, but take any issue. Like well, related to this one, like I back the blue, right? I'm like back the blue. I'm all about police officers and police officers' rights. You hold that view, totally a rational view to hold.
Mhm.
But also, it's totally fine that people who assaulted police officers got pardoned,
Yeah.
right? And police officers died that day. But you're gonna hold both of those things and put your head on your pillow and somehow sleep at night, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you can take other issues too. Like, um, I'm uh, I'm all about medical freedom. Like, I'm all about medical freedom, especially when it comes to vaccinations and all the things. And I'm super, super against a parent's right to choose gender affirming care for their child.
Yes.
Like another
Yes.
parent. You know, how do you hold those two
Hmm.
things? And then just like go to bed and not
Yeah.
it not like keep you awake at night. This idea of hypocrisy and cognitive dissonance is just like it's just gone. Like it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Like the rationalization of these like multiple opposing viewpoints doesn't seem to bother folks. It doesn't seem to bother folks. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I have a really hard time with it, especially there are people in my life that I love. And I know people in my life that I love that are very like back the blue is a big part of their personality. And it's it's so frustrating me like what if that what if that was somebody that you loved, that police officer? You think that's okay? And you're just going to vote for this guy again and you're just going to use cognitive dissonance to be like, well, it didn't really happen that way, or I'm not happy about that, but that was those people. It wasn't Trump. It wasn't like Trump caused that. He
Yeah.
he did cause it. Trump
Uh-huh.
caused it 100%. He caused it from his rhetoric, from the day he started bitching about Obama being a birther. He caused
Mm-hmm.
it from the minute he came down that escalator and gave his Mexican or rapist speech. He did
Yeah.
it every day of the both or all three elections and of his presidency and all that time in between.
Yeah. And even if you can block all of that out and you can say, you know what, okay, like the cause and effect of Trump and January 6th is just not there for me. It's there for me, but if like a person could say that
Yeah,
it's not there, he still pardoned them, right? So
yeah,
like even if the cause is not there, then we get to, years later and he has the power of pardon and he pardons them. So like the causality is there in the after effect of all of it, even if you can't like even if you fall for the lie that it wasn't there in the beginning.
mhm,
And it's just like super smart people hold these completely opposing viewpoints. People that I know, right? I know to be smart and kind. Otherwise, how do you do that? Like how do you do that and go to sleep at night?
yeah,
That's my
yeah.
that's my never-ending question these days.
And I wonder, and to be fair, I haven't talked to a lot of people that support him and like how they feel about the pardons, and I probably won't because I love these people and I really don't want. I don't want to get into it. I want to continue to have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not good. I know there are a lot of people that like you need to talk to your people, your family, your friends, whatever that hold these views. I think I, I believe that that is a good thing. I'm just too much of a coward to do it because I don't want to totally ruin everything. But so I did have a point in there somewhere. Um, but like, even if Trump, pardoned some of them because they walked through the doors after things were broken, like they were part of
Yeah, if
the
there was a
group, but they
thought
didn't
process.
necessarily break
Yeah.
down the doors. They didn't hit anybody. They didn't, if those people, I think all those people should be charged and should suffer the consequences. But if he pardoned those people, I'm not as upset about it. But the fact that he pardoned everybody, every
Yeah.
violent person,
Regardless.
everybody
Yes.
that planned it, everybody that decided to bring weapons, everybody that, was had weapons stored in hotels in case they needed them. Like there's all sorts of stuff that happened in relation to that. People that threw bombs, people that planted bombs, like all this stuff. It's just, it's okay. They're all fine. Doesn't
The
matter.
people who shouted "Hang Mike Pence," right,
Yeah.
and literally put a gallows up on our nation's Capitol lawn.
Yeah.
It's it's outrageous, and it will continue to be. And like back to our freshman flagger, like this stuff is come home, right? It's here. It's in DC. It's across the country, and it's here in Midland. And I know that you and I are going to be watching what unfolds from here. I'm going to be watching to see whether or not our, local Republican Party is going to welcome him back to the fold,
Hmm.
right? Remember
Yeah.
when the news first came out, they came out with a statement saying, "I don't know who this guy is,"
Yeah.
which was
Jeremy who?
outrageous. Yeah, Jeremy who. We'll see what happens there, and
Hmm.
and we're going to be paying attention to that for sure. Paying attention to what his like political aspirations are
Hmm.
in our space. Um, because I will do everything I can to make sure that Midland does not suffer the embarrassment of
Yeah.
being represented in Lansing or anywhere else by the freshman flagger.
Hmm.
And so that will be as we kind of pay attention and see what the plan is on their side for that. We're going to be putting some real resources into making sure that never happens. That
For
never
sure.
happens.
I do have one other concern, and I've heard other people say this, and I've heard, okay, so people are scared. People are scared about what Trump supporters are going to do. White nationalists, like the fringe, the outside parts of it. Like, I'm not worried about what my Republican neighbor is going to do,
Hmm.
but people are worried. I know trans people are worried. I know people who love trans people are worried. Like, we went to a
Absolutely.
meeting the other night and heard a lot of people that were just scared for themselves,
Terrified.
their loved
Yes.
ones. And some of the advice there was, well, you just have to stand up and be proud and whatever. And I think like one of the things that we had said in our little group discussing things at the time was like, it was a privileged take,
Yeah.
because I feel
Yeah.
the same way. I'm like, we have to stand up, we have to put our voice out there. We can't um just be scared all the time. But that's very privileged because I'm white, for one. I'm straight, I'm middle class, I've got
Yeah.
security, and it's easier for me to say that I'm going to stand up and fight, and
Yeah.
no one's going to impede on my speech, than it is for other people. But I
Yeah.
would encourage people to try not to start out afraid. um, and we're going to be watching it, we're going to be very careful, and we're going to make sure, because we've always had sort of that threat of violence against Democrats in Midland County. It's
For sure.
always been there.
Yep.
We've experienced it at the fair
Yep.
every single year that
Yep.
we've been there.
Yep.
I've had insults thrown at me.
I had a
I've felt
ton of
threatened.
examples
Yeah.
when I was a candidate of
Yeah.
literally being afraid for my safety in front of a truckload full of folks who um, could have done me harm and
Yeah.
were threatening to. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. And like your point is so important because we also have to know what those privileges are that we hold.
Hmm.
And so where you and I can stand strong and continue to live our values and put our bodies where our values are, get out there and on the streets and in the newspapers and all the things, we can do that because we have the protection of our privilege.
Hmm.
And like as long as we're ex- um, expecting and hoping that others are going to do the same, right? They're going to go as far as they can, as far as their privileges protect them too. And when they're making decisions to not go any farther in certain spaces, then to believe that
Hmm.
they can't, right? For their own
Yeah.
personal safety, right? So like
Yeah.
that's really important in our work. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Alrighty. Well, let's get back to your Friday. Good to talk to you, Jennifer, and we're going to be paying close attention to this topic and others.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Be
thanks so
ready
much.
to stop Jeremy Rodgers from running for office, everybody.
Absolutely. That's my new life's focus. All right. Take care. We'll talk soon.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.